and welcome. My name is Molly Dreesen, and I'm a doctoral candidate in social work at the University of Minnesota. I will be presenting this module titled Data from Women Whose Partner Participated in Domestic Violence Court. I am presenting this module on behalf of Dr. Lynette Renner, who is a professor in the School of Social Work and the principal investigator of this project, and Kenny Turk, who is also a doctoral student in social work. This module is a follow-up to the two-part module series from last year that focused on the role of domestic violence courts, or DVCs, for families, partners, and children. Please refer to these two modules for further information on the DVC reviewed specifically for this study and to learn more about DVCs and intimate partner violence, or IPV, more broadly. This module is the first of two modules that focus on preliminary data that was collected from both victims and offenders who have participated in the DVC in Mille Lacs County, Minnesota. The focus of this module is on the perspectives and experiences from women whose partner participated in the DVC. There are three learning objectives for this module. First, by viewing this module, we expect the audience to have a better understanding of the history and goals of DVCs. Second, that you connect DVCs to child welfare needs and goals. And third, that you recognize the benefit that DVCs can have for victims of IPV. To set the foundation for this module, it's important to review some key information about IPV, child welfare, and DVCs. IPV includes physical violence, sexual violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. IPV may also include emotional abuse, coercion, isolation, and financial abuse. Included on the slide are some key statistics pertaining to the prevalence of IPV in the United States, including children's exposure to IPV. Although IPV may impact any individual regardless of their sex or gender, research has continued to demonstrate a higher prevalence of intimate partner victimization toward females compared to males. Given this higher prevalence rate, researchers have devoted significant study to the impact of IPV for women and their children. Researchers continue to demonstrate substantial consequences for women and their children because of IPV. Some consequences for women include mental health problems, such as post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, anxiety or depression, as well as physical health problems, including migraines, neck injuries, or other types of chronic pain. IPV also has significant consequences on financial costs, both for the immediate individuals being impacted and the broader society. Authors of a 2018 study reported that the estimated IPV lifetime cost was $103,767 per female victim, $23,414 per male victim, or a total of $3.6 trillion of a population economic burden over victims' lifetimes. Because IPV affects all members of a family, researchers have focused on how IPV impacts the parent-child relationship. For example, some researchers have found mothers to report how IPV has affected their discipline practices, nurturing, and parenting satisfaction. Potential impacts on parenting also have been found to influence the behavior and well-being of children. For instance, researchers have found relationships between parental mental health and children's resulting mental health problems, including being more likely to develop PTSD as a result of parental PTSD and exposure to trauma. Much of the research has focused on the mother-child relationship, given the prevalence of female victimization. This diagram depicts some of the connections between IPV and child welfare. As previously discussed, we know that negative mental health and physical health outcomes may occur for women and their children. We also know that IPV has potential negative impacts on the mother-child relationship, such as challenges with communication and coping. In one study that examined child welfare workers' perspectives on cases that involved IPV, workers identified challenges with communication, creating a collaborative process, and increasing IPV competency and complexity. One worker said, "Everyone feels differently about whether or not a danger threat should be found. Safety planning is also hard. It's also unfair to the mother to say she needs services when the father is the one who primarily needs them and we don't do anything to help him because of his criminal history." It is important to remember that IPV affects all members of a family and can have a variety of negative consequences, specifically for both mother and their children. As such, service providers need to think critically about how to best support mothers and their children impacted by IPV across various systems, including the child welfare system and the justice system. The next slides review DVCs, including the DVC in Mille Lacs County that was the focus of this project. Although it is estimated that there are over 300 DVCs across the U.S., there is still a significant lack of literature and evaluation studies on the impact of these courts. And although there are no standard criteria for how these courts are administered and surveyed, the broader goals have similarities in promoting victim safety, offender accountability, and overall administration of justice. Through participation in the DVC, the goal is for both offenders and victims to connect and receive the support that they may need. The second module of this year's series will focus on the perspectives of some offenders who graduated from the Mille Lacs County DVC. The focus on this module is on the perspectives of some women whose current or former partner participated in the DVC. After an offender is arrested for domestic violence, a law enforcement officer makes a report to the county attorney's office. The county attorney then reaches out to a domestic violence advocate, who in this case is connected to the Pearl Crisis Center of Mille Lacs County. The domestic violence advocate is the first person to make contact with the victim if the offender is officially screened into the DVC program. The domestic violence advocate works with the victim and any children to provide referrals, resources, updates, and information pertaining to the offender's progress and court appearances, and so forth. As you may recall, this project was designed to evaluate the DVC in Mille Lacs County, which closely partners with the Pearl Crisis Center and other community partners to provide victim support advocacy. The goal of this project was to implement data collection from victims and offenders and provide feedback and recommendations back to the DVC and Pearl Crisis Center. The data that will be presented in just a moment were collected through a survey that was given to women who participated in the DVC as victims of IPV. A different but similar survey was also designed and given to offenders who participated in the DVC, and these results will be presented in the second module. It is important to note that the DVC was impacted by COVID-19, making it difficult to collect data as originally planned. For the purpose of this module, we will focus on data collected from 6 participants who identified as victims through the DVC and worked with Pearl Crisis Center. All of these participants identified as female, with the average age being 43 years old. 5 of the women identified as white, and the 6th participant did not identify their race. The participants all had a high school diploma as their highest degree earned. 5 of the 6 women had children, but only 2 of these women had children in common with the offender who is participating in the DVC. One key component of the DVC for victims of IPV is to be able to receive ongoing support services, referrals, and victim advocacy. This table demonstrates what services participants receive during their participation with the DVC in Mille Lacs County. As you can see, all 6 women received services from Pearl Crisis Center advocates. Other services that participants received included legal aid, working with a victim assistance coordinator, and working with a domestic violence court surveillance officer. On this slide, we included responses from participants as they described the impact of the DVC and the services that they received. These quotes demonstrate the positive impact among women who participated in the DVC. One participant said, "I received services that I otherwise would not have received." Another reflected that the services were helpful in improving my safety. A third commented, "The services were helpful in improving my mental health." And finally, one said, "The services were helpful with improving my parental relationship with my children." As you can see, participants described a variety of benefits from their participation with the DVC, ranging from mental health to safety to the parent-child relationship. The next few slides present additional survey responses from the female participants. One survey question asked participants to reflect on what they did to feel safe while the offender was participating in the DVC. Although responses were collected from only 6 women, there were noticeable differences in the strategies they used to feel safe. One woman reported that she attended groups, while others kept themselves locked in their home. Other women described various safety strategies that they engaged in with others, including friends or community members whom they trusted. Women were asked about the services they specifically received through working with advocates from the Pearl Crisis Center. All women either strongly agreed or agreed with the below statements. Participants' agreement with these services show the positive role of the DVC, specifically through being able to connect and work with the DV advocate through the Pearl Crisis Center. The DV advocates begin their work as soon as a case comes into the DVC, and they make sure to contact the victims often in order to communicate about the case's progression and address safety concerns, provide education, and connect them to resources in the community. Women were asked to describe what services that they received were the most helpful. As seen from these quotes, women again mentioned the benefit of working with a DV advocate from the Pearl Crisis Center. This relationship with advocates through the DVC continues to be a positive and important relationship for victims as they navigate the DVC and work to improve their safety and well-being. A common theme in some of these responses is that the frequent communication and updates that they received from the DV advocate concerning the offender's court case was beneficial. Another theme throughout the comments has been an increased sense of safety that some participants described in remaining connected with a DV advocate. One of the participants shared, "If I ever needed to talk or ask questions, Pearl Center was always there when I needed. I also received gift cards for food, gas, when I was in a bind in the beginning. They are huge helpers with huge hearts." Women were also asked to share their thoughts on what made their experience with the DVC the most difficult. These responses are important to consider so that the DVC can better meet the needs of victims of IPV. One woman said, "Each time he, the offender, violated one of the probation guidelines, it seemed like a slap on the wrist for him. I definitely think there should be tougher punishments for violations of any probation conditions." Another said, the DVC process, takes a long time. I understand why. But the hardest part is not being able to speak my story to the judge, to tell my part of what happened, to let them know what led up to this point. These comments reflect participants' desire to have their voice heard and for the offender to be held accountable for their actions. Finally, we asked women to share any final thoughts, comments, or reflections that they had in relation to the DVC and their experience. 2 women shared the following comments. One said, "They need to switch up the judges and harden laws on them," meaning the offenders. "Stop with the slaps and get into business." This woman's comment is similar to one of the participants' comments from the previous slide in wanting offenders to be held accountable for the actions in ways that did not seem to just be a slap on the wrist. The second woman said, "I just wish the victim's voice was heard by the judge or court, either in silence, a separate room, or in a court setting, whichever better suits the case. Again, this is another theme among the participants' responses of also wanting their voice heard by the judge throughout the DVC process. This concludes the first module of another two-part series that presents data from our project with the DVC in Mille Lacs County. If you have not yet done so, we encourage you to watch our two-part module series from last year that focuses on the history, role, and description of DVCs across the country, along with further information about this project, community partners, and goals. The second module for the series will present similar information, but from the perspective of offenders who graduated from the DVC. Please remember there's a post-quiz for each of these modules that must be completed in order for you to obtain educational credit. Please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions or interests to continue the conversation in relation to these topics. The last slide presents the references that were used to create this module. Thank you for watching.